quite a while. The galaxy still needs its guardian.
Hello, we come in peace.
Honestly, dude?
No! Ow!
Don't forget where we came from.
I've been running our whole lives.
Pete, I'm done running. Stay together. One last time. Into the forever and
And we'll kill anyone who gets in our way.
No, not killing.
Kill one guy, one stupid guy who no one loves.
Now you're just making it.
What if the funniest team in the galaxy had to face their most emotional mission yet? Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 reveals Rocket's heartbreaking past with shocking twists and epic action. You won't forget. Stay with Sonu Hub as we break down the full movie, hidden details, and amazing facts you probably missed. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, also called Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, is a 2023 American superhero movie based on the Marvel Comics team. The Guardians of the Galaxy, the movie was made by Marvel Studios and released by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. It is the sequel to Guardians of the Galaxy 2014 and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 2017, and it is the 32nd movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe (MCU). The film was written and directed by James Gunn and stars Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, Karen Gillan, Pom Klementieff, Vin Diesel, Bradley Cooper, Will Poulter, Sean Gunn, Chukwudi Iwuji, Linda Cardellini, Nathan Fillion, and Sylvester Stallone. In this movie, the Guardians go on their most personal and emotional mission yet as they fight to save Rocket's life. To do that, they must face Rocket's creator, the High Evolutionary, a powerful alien scientist who believes he can create the perfect universe by controlling and changing all living creatures. James Gunn first started thinking about making a third and final Guardians of the Galaxy movie back in November 2014. In April 2017, before the second movie was released, he officially announced that he would return to write and direct the final chapter of the trilogy. This movie focuses heavily on Rocket's past, revealing where he came from and everything he went through before joining the Guardians. Gunn has said that Rocket is the character he connects with the most on a personal level, which is why Rocket's story became the emotional heart of the film. In July 2018, Disney removed Gunn from the project after some old and controversial jokes he had posted on Twitter years earlier resurfaced online. Many of the movie's cast members and fans publicly supported Gunn, asking Disney to bring him back. After several months, the studio changed its decision and Gunn was officially rehired. His return was publicly confirmed in March 2019. However, before starting work on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Gunn finished directing DC The Suicide Squad 2021 and the first season of the spin-off TV series Peacemaker 2022. Once those projects were complete, he returned to Marvel and continued working on the movie. New cast members, including Chukwudi Iwuji and Will Poulter, joined the project before filming began. Production took place at Trilogy Studios in Atlanta, Georgia from November 2021 through May 2022. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 had its world premiere at Disneyland Paris on April 22, 2023, before hitting theaters across the United States on May 5, 2023 as part of Phase 5 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Just like the first two movies, it was a huge success with both critics and audiences. Many reviewers praised it for delivering an emotional, funny, and satisfying ending to the Guardians trilogy, with Rocket's story receiving especially strong praise. The movie earned more than $845.6 million at the worldwide box office, making it the fourth highest grossing movie of 2023. It was also recognized during awards season and received a nomination for Best Visual Effects at the 96 Academy Awards, highlighting its impressive visual effects and outstanding technical work. The Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, also called Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, is a 2023 American superhero movie based on the Marvel Comics team, the Guardians of the Galaxy. The movie was made by Marvel Studios and released by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. It is the sequel to Guardians of the Galaxy 2014 and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 2017. And it is the 32nd movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe (MCU). The film was written and directed by James Gunn and stars Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, Karen Gillan, Pom Klementieff, Vin Diesel, Bradley Cooper, Will Poulter, Sean Gunn, Chukwudi Iwuji, Linda Cardellini, Nathan Fillion, and Sylvester Stallone. In this movie, the Guardians go on their most personal and emotional mission, yet as they fight to save Rocket's life. To do that, they must face Rocket's creator, the High Evolutionary, a powerful alien scientist who believes he can create the perfect universe by controlling and changing all living creatures. James Gunn first started thinking about making a third and final Guardians of the Galaxy movie back in November 2014. In April 2017, before the second movie was released, he officially announced that he would return to write and direct the final chapter of the trilogy. This movie focuses heavily on Rocket's past, revealing where he came from and everything he went through before joining the Guardians. Gunn has said that Rocket is the character he connects with the most on a personal level, which is why Rocket's story became the emotional heart of the film. In July 2018, Disney removed Gunn from the project after some old and controversial jokes he had posted on Twitter years earlier resurfaced online. Many of the movie's cast members and fans publicly supported Gunn, asking Disney to bring him back. After several months, the studio changed its decision and Gunn was officially rehired. His return was publicly confirmed in March 2019. However, before starting work on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Gunn finished directing DC's The Suicide Squad 2021 and the first season of the spin-off TV series Peacemaker 2022. Once those projects were complete, he returned to Marvel and continued working on the movie. New cast members, including Chukwudi Iwuji and Will Poulter, joined the project before filming began. Production took place at Trilogy Studios in Atlanta, Georgia from November 2021 through May 2022, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 had its world premiere at Disneyland Paris on April 22, 2023, before hitting theaters across the United States on May 5, 2023, as part of Phase 5 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Just like the first two movies, it was a huge success with both critics and audiences. Many reviewers praised it for delivering an emotional, funny, and satisfying ending to the Guardians trilogy, with Rocket's story receiving especially strong praise. The movie earned more than $845.6 million at the worldwide box office, making it the fourth highest grossing movie of 2023. It was also recognized during awards season and received a nomination for Best Visual Effects at the 96th Academy Awards, highlighting its impressive visual effects and outstanding technical work. Also, rewrite this: Peter is in depression ever since Gamora lost her memory from the last few years. At their new headquarters on Nowhere, the Guardians of the Galaxy are attacked by Adam Warlock, Will Poulter, a sovereign warrior created by High Priestess Ayesha, Elizabeth Debicki, who seeks to destroy them for stealing from her. Adam easily defeats Rocket Mantis, Peter, Nebula, and Groot. Kraglin's arrows cannot pierce Adam's metallic skin. Even Drax is no match for Adam's strength and is subdued. After critically wounding Rocket, Bradley Cooper, Adam is stabbed by Nebula, Karen Gillan, and flees. The Guardians' medpacks are useless at healing Rocket's wounds, who has a kill switch embedded in him by OrgoCorp, a company led by the High Evolutionary Chukwudi Iwuji, Rocket's creator. The code on Rocket's kill switch is 89P13. The Guardians travel to OrgoCorp's headquarters to find the switch's override code and save Rocket's life. Kraglin is left in charge of Nowhere with Cosmos, whom Kraglin considers an ugly dog. As Rocket lies unconscious, he recalls his past. He was found as a baby raccoon and was experimented on by the High Evolutionary, an alien cyborg scientist and CEO of OrgoCorp, specializing in creating hybrid creatures, and Rocket's creator, seeking to forcibly enhance all living beings into a special race, where he has been credited as creating the Animen, the Humanimals, the Hellspawn, the Sovereign, the Zeronians, and the Star Children, to create an ideal society called Counter-Earth. Rocket befriended his fellow Batch 89 test subjects, the Otter Lila Linda Cardellini, the Walrus Thieves Asim Chaudhary, and the Rabbit Floor Michaela Hoover. The High Evolutionary was impressed by Rocket's growing intelligence and used his insight to fix a defect in later humanimal batches, but planned to harvest Rocket's brain for further research and exterminate the obsolete Batch 89. The High Evolutionary shows Rocket how he has perfected program evolution, but for some reason the evolved organisms are violent by nature. Rocket is able to point out specific changes to the evolutionary program that would help control the level of violence tendency in the evolved organisms. After making the suggested changes, the programmed evolution sequence works. The High Evolutionary is amazed that Rocket from Batch 89 was able to figure this technology out, but could not figure out that Batch 89 was only an experiment and not meant for the new world he was building. Rocket attempted to free his friends before the High Evolutionary killed Lila and mocked Rocket for showing grief over her death. Enraged, Rocket mauled the High Evolutionary's face, whose henchmen killed Thieves and Floor in the ensuing firefight. Rocket fled in a spaceship. Back in the present, Ayeshan is shown to be working for the High Evolutionary. High Evolutionary is livid with Ayesha for knowing of 89P13's existence for several years without alerting him. High Evolutionary wants 89P13 returned to him, else he promises to wipe out Ayesha's entire sovereign race. The Ravagers are an interstellar criminal syndicate that specialize in thievery, trafficking, and piracy. There were nearly 100 factions of Ravagers around the galaxy. Each faction has a captain of its own, leading their operations, including an alternate version of Gamora, Zoe Saldana, help the Guardians infiltrate Orgocorp. Peter tries to get Gamora to remember their life together, but she says that it was some future version of her and not her who fell in love with Peter. Gamora also points out that the things Peter loves, it sounds like he is in love with Nebula. Orgocorp is completely made of organic material. Gamora gets them in via a decompression chamber. But the group is soon discovered. They retrieve Rocket's file and fight off Orgocorp sentries to be picked up Groot, who flies in with their spaceship. The group discover that the code to override the kill switch was removed, with the likely culprit being Thiel Nicosantos, one of the High Evolutionary's advisors. High Evolutionary has used Orgocorp to fund his experiments that lie outside intergalactic law. The Guardians, along with Gamora, depart for Counter-Earth to find him. Gamora argues that this is a trap since the High Evolutionary is looking for Rocket and they are taking him straight to the High Evolutionary. Gamora signals the Ravagers to pick her up, but her communication is intercepted by Aisha, who follows the Guardians with Adam. The Guardians reach Counter-Earth and are guided to the Arid Laboratorius complex. Drax, Dave Bautista, and Mantis, Palm Clementieff remain with Gamora and Rocket, while Peter Quill, Chris Pratt, Groot, Vin Diesel, and Nebula travel to Arid. Nebula is forced to wait outside the complex by guards as she is armed. Quill and Groot enter Arid to meet the High Evolutionary, while Drax tricks Mantis into pursuing Quill's group. As Quill's group is engaged in banter by the High Evolutionary, he launches an attack by his guards on Quill's ship to retrieve Rocket. Gamora saves Rocket from being captured by Adam and the High Evolutionary's guard Warpig, Judy Greer. Adam kills Warpig as he wanted to present Rocket to the High Evolutionary and save the Sovereign. Questioned by Quill, the High Evolutionary admits this version Counter-Earth society is imperfect. So he bombards the planet, killing the humanimals as well as Ayesha. This enrages Adam, who considered Adam as his mother. Adam's ship is destroyed and he has no option but to take shelter with Gamora. Arid departs as a spaceship with Nebula, Drax, and Mantis, boarding it to rescue Quill and Groot, who instead escape Arid with Thiel, who they kill before retrieving the code from his corpse and being rescued by Gamora in their ship. As Quill's group uses the code, Rocket flatlines and has a near-death experience in which he reunites with Lila, Teefs, and Floor. He learns from Lila that his time has not yet come as Quill uses the code to disable the kill switch and restart Rocket's heart. Drax, Nebula, and Mantis encounter several genetically modified humanoid children on Arid before being captured by the High Evolutionary. The High Evolutionary wants Peter to bring Rocket to him in exchange for the captured trio. Peter contacts Kraglin on the Nohere to help. The High Evolutionary tells his advisors that in thousands of generations that he created, only one experiment led to true intelligence, and that was Rocket, which is studying him, is critical. The other Guardians stage a rescue, leading to a battle against the High Evolutionary's forces. Kraglin Sean Gunn fires on Arid, with Nohere dooming Arid. Kraglin and Cosmos then help to save Nohere citizens from a counterattack by the High Evolutionary's Hellspawn. Cosmos is revealed to have telekinetic abilities. Intent on retreat, the High Evolutionary's crew mutiny only to be killed by their leader. Drax, Nebula, and Mantis befriend three monstrous obelisks to escape and reunite with Quill's group. The Guardians delay, leaving Ariti, choosing to rescue the children created by the High Evolutionary, who escaped to Nowhere via a tunnel constructed by Cosmos telekinesis. Rocket discovers imprisoned animals on the ship before being confronted by the High Evolutionary, whom the other Guardians defeat. Rocket spares the High Evolutionary, and the Guardians help the animals escape to Nowhere. Quill nearly dies trying to cross over, but is saved by Adam, who was saved from Aerith by Groot, as everyone deserves a second chance. In the end, Quill decides to leave the Guardians, naming Rocket as captain, and travels to Earth to reunite with Jason, Greg Henry, his grandfather. Mantis embarks on a journey of self-discovery with the Abilisks. Gamora rejoins the Ravagers, and Nebula and Drax remain on Nowhere to raise the rescued children. In a mid-credits scene, the new Guardians, consisting of Rocket, Groot, Kraglin, Cosmo, Adam, Phyla, one of the rescued children, and Adam's pet Blurp, take on a new mission. Peter Quill is heartbroken and struggling with depression because Gamora no longer remembers him or the life they shared together. Ever since she came back from another timeline, she's been a completely different person, and Peter can't move on. At the Guardians' new headquarters on Nowhere, the team is suddenly attacked by Adam Warlock Willpolter, a super powerful warrior created by High Priestess Aisha Elizabeth Debicki. Aisha wants revenge because the Guardians stole valuable technology from the Sovereign. Adam easily overpowers the team. He defeats Rocket, Mantis, Peter, Nebula, and Groot with little effort. Kraglin tries to stop him using Yondu's flying arrow, but Adam's nearly indestructible skin is too strong for it to break through. Even Drax, known for his incredible strength, can't match Adam and is quickly taken down. Before leaving, Adam badly injures Rocket, voiced by Bradley Cooper. Nebula, carrying Gillen, manages to stab Adam, forcing him to retreat. The Guardians rush to save Rocket, but they soon discover that their medical packs can't heal him. Rocket has a hidden kill switch inside his body that was implanted years ago by Orgocorp, the company owned by the High Evolutionary Chukwudi Iwuji, the scientist who created him. The security code connected to Rocket's kill switch is 89P13. To save Rocket's life, the Guardians travel to Orgocorp headquarters hoping to find the override code. Meanwhile, Kraglin stays behind on Nowhere with Cosmo, the telepathic dog, who he jokingly keeps calling an ugly dog. While Rocket lies unconscious, he begins remembering his painful past. As a baby raccoon, he was captured and taken to the High Evolutionary, a brilliant but cruel alien scientist obsessed with creating the perfect species. Through painful experiments, he genetically modified animals and other creatures, creating races like the Sovereign, Humanimals, Hellspawn, Xeronians, Star Children, and many others. His ultimate goal was to build a perfect civilization called Counter Earth. During his time in the laboratory, Rocket became friends with 3 other experimental animals from Batch 89: Lila, a kind-hearted otter thieves, a gentle walrus, and Floor, an innocent rabbit with mechanical spider legs. Despite everything they suffered, they supported each other and dreamed about escaping. One day, the High Evolutionary quickly noticed that Rocket was far smarter than any of his other experiments. Rocket even figured out how to fix a major flaw in the scientist's evolution program that caused his genetically engineered creatures to become naturally violent. Rocket suggested several changes that solved the problem, leaving the High Evolutionary shocked by his incredible intelligence. Once the new evolution process worked, the High Evolutionary decided Rocket's brain was too valuable to waste. He planned to remove Rocket's brain for more research and destroy the rest of Batch 89 because they were no longer useful. Rocket realized what was happening and tried to rescue Lila, Teefs, and Floor before they could escape. The High Evolutionary shot and killed Lila right in front of Rocket. Furious and heartbroken, Rocket attacked the High Evolutionary, tearing apart his face with his claws. During the chaotic battle, the scientist soldiers killed both Teefs and Floor. Rocket barely escaped alone in a stolen spaceship, carrying the emotional scars that would stay with him forever. Back in the present, it is revealed that Ayesha is working for the High Evolutionary. He is furious that she knew about Rocket, known as 89P13, for years without telling him. He orders her to bring Rocket back immediately and threatens to wipe out the entire sovereign race if she fails. To break into Orga Corp, the Guardians receive help from the Ravagers, a famous group of space pirates and thieves. Among them is this timeline's version of Gamora, Zoe Saldana. Peter keeps trying to remind her about the love they once shared, but Gamora tells him those memories belong to another version of herself, not her. She even jokes that, based on the way Peter talks about everyone, it almost sounds like he's in love with Nebula instead. OrgoCorp is unlike any normal building because it's made entirely of living organic material. Gamora helps the team sneak inside through a decompression chamber, but security quickly discovers them. The Guardians manage to steal Rocket's files while fighting off OrgoCorp soldiers until Groot arrives with their ship to rescue them. After checking the files, they realize the kill switch's override code has already been removed. The person most likely responsible is Thiel Nico Santos, one of the High Evolutionary's top advisors. They also learn that OrgoCorp secretly funds the High Evolutionary's illegal genetic experiments across the galaxy. The Guardians decide to travel to Counter-Earth to find the High Evolutionary himself. Gamora warns them that it's obviously a trap because the villain wants Rocket and they're bringing him straight to his creator. She secretly contacts the Ravagers to come pick her up, but Ayesha intercepts the message and follows the Guardians with Adam Warlock. When the Guardians arrive on Counter-Earth, they head toward the Arit laboratory complex. Drax, Mantis, Gamora, and the unconscious Rocket stay behind while Peter, Groot, and Nebula head inside. Since Nebula is heavily armed, security forces her to wait outside. Peter and Groot meet the High Evolutionary, who distracts them with conversation while secretly ordering his soldiers to attack the Guardian's ship and capture Rocket. Gamora fights back and saves Rocket from both Adam Warlock and one of the High Evolutionary's guards called War Pig. Adam eventually kills War Pig because he wants to personally deliver Rocket to the High Evolutionary and save the sovereign race during the confrontation. Peter questions the High Evolutionary about Counter-Earth. The villain admits that even this version of his perfect world is still flawed and decides to erase it completely. He launches a devastating attack that destroys the planet and kills millions of humanimals, along with Ayesha herself. Adam is devastated because he truly saw Ayesha as his mother. After his own ship is destroyed, he has no choice but to seek shelter with Gamora. Arit suddenly transforms into a massive spaceship and launches into space. Nebula, Drax, and Mantis board it to rescue Peter and Groot. Meanwhile, Peter and Groot escape with Thiel, kill him, recover the kill switch code from his body, and are rescued by Gamora. They quickly use the code to disable Rocket's kill switch, but Rocket's heart has already stopped. As Rocket dies, he experiences a peaceful vision where he reunites with Lila, Teefs, and Floor. They tell him they have missed him, but Lila gently explains that his time hasn't come yet and that he still has a purpose. At that exact moment, Peter successfully disables the kill switch and restarts. Rocket's heart, bringing him back to life. Elsewhere on Arete, Drax, Nebula, and Mantis discover a group of genetically engineered children created by the High Evolutionary. Before they can rescue them, they are captured. The High Evolutionary offers Peter a deal. Bring Rocket to him and he'll release Peter's friends. He also tells his advisors that after thousands of generations of experiments, Rocket is the only creation that ever achieved true genius level intelligence, making him the most valuable experiment he's ever produced. The Guardians refuse to surrender and launch one final rescue mission. A huge battle breaks out across Arete. Kraglin arrives aboard Nohere and attacks the High Evolutionary ship, while Cosmo uses her powerful telekinetic abilities to protect Nohere and save its citizens from the terrifying hell-spawn creatures sent to attack them. As the High Evolutionary tries to escape, his own crew finally turns against him, but he murders them without hesitation. While escaping, Drax, Nebula, and Mantis befriend three giant obelisks, using them to reunite with the rest of the team. Instead of simply escaping, the Guardians choose to rescue every innocent child and animal trapped aboard Arete. Cosmo creates a massive telekinetic tunnel, allowing everyone to safely reach Nohere. Rocket eventually discovers countless imprisoned animals inside the ship and comes face to face with the High Evolutionary one last time. Together, the Guardians defeat the villain. Although Rocket has every reason to kill the man who destroyed his life, he chooses mercy and walks away, proving he is better than his creator. The Guardians free all of the trapped animals and safely evacuated them to Nohere. As everyone escapes, Peter nearly dies while trying to cross through space without protection. At the last second, Adam Warlock saves him. Earlier, Groot had rescued Adam from the exploding ship because, as Groot reminds everyone, everyone deserves a second chance. After everything they've been through, the Guardians decide it's time for a new beginning. Peter steps down as leader and names Rocket the new captain of the Guardians. He returns to Earth to reunite with his grandfather, Jason Greg Henry. Mantis leaves to discover who she truly is, traveling with the Obelisks. Gamora returns to the Ravagers, while Nebula and Drax choose to stay on Nohere and raise the rescued children, giving them the loving home they never had. In the mid-credits scene, the new Guardians team, made up of Rocket, Groot, Kraglin, Cosmo, Adam Warlock, Fila, one of the rescued children, and Adam's pet Blurp, sets off on their very first mission together, showing that a new chapter for the Guardians has officially begun. Casting Chris Pratt as Peter Quill, Star-Lord Chris Pratt returns as the half-human, half-celestial leader of the Guardians, a role he originated in the 2014 film and continued through subsequent MCU appearances in Volume 3. Quill grapples with depression following the loss of the original Gamora and the presence of a variant version who does not share their history. Pratt's performance builds on the character's established mix of bravado, vulnerability, and pop culture references. The actor's journey into the role dates back to the first film's casting process, where he initially resisted auditioning and director James Gunn was initially reluctant to consider him. Gunn and Dave Bautista ultimately collaborated on an improv chemistry test that helped secure the part after Pratt's formal screens test raised studio concerns. Pratt has expressed openness to continuing as Quill in future MCU projects if the right material emerges, noting that the end of Volume 3 leaves the door open for the legendary Star-Lord. His portrayal across the trilogy transformed him from a television comedy lead into a bankable action star while anchoring the Guardians' emotional core. Zoe Saldana as Gamora. Zoe Saldana reprises her role as the alternate Timaliner version of Gamora introduced in Avengers Endgame. This iteration serves as a Ravager rather than a Guardian and maintains a colder, more independent demeanor toward Quill. Saldana has stated that Volume 3 marks her final appearance as the character, noting that she originally signed for one film and remained for far longer than anticipated. She has spoken about the role's impact on female audiences and her gratitude for the opportunity. Saldana was the only actor from Gunn's original Little Book of Dreamcasting ideas for the first Guardians film who ultimately played the part. Her physicality, fight choreography expertise, and ability to convey both lethal precision and underlying humanity made her a foundational presence. The film allows her to explore Gamora's leadership within the Ravagers while still intersecting with the Guardian's final mission. Dave Bautista as Drax the Destroyer. Dave Bautista returns as the literal-minded, emotionally earnest warrior whose family was killed under Thanos' orders. Volume 3 serves as his farewell to the character. Bautista has described the conclusion as both a relief, citing the extensive makeup hours, and a source of gratitude for the career platform the role provided. Gunn deliberately excluded Drax from the post-credits scene out of respect for Bautista's decision. Bautista's casting for the original film involved chemistry work with Pratt that helped lock in both actors. His performance consistently balances physical power with unexpected comedic timing and quiet pathos, evolving Drax from pure revenge seeker into a loyal team member capable of growth. The actor's background in professional wrestling informed the physical demands, while his commitment to dramatic range shaped the character's later emotional layers. Karen Gillan as Nebula. Karen Gillan continues as Nebula, Gamora's adoptive sister and former instrument of Thanos in Volume 3. The character displays increased levity and psychological healing after the death of her abuser. Gunn has noted that the film completes an arc he envisioned from the first Guardians movie, transforming a minor antagonist into a full Guardian. Gillan has observed that Nebula harbors a small crush on Quill, though Gunn has stated he never intended a romance. Her early audition for the original film used a Scottish accent before Gunn redirected her toward a distinctive clip delivery combining elements of Marilyn Monroe and Clint Eastwood. The extensive prosthetic work required for Nebula remained a constant, yet Gillan's performance deepened the character's capacity for loyalty, vulnerability, and dry humor across the trilogy. Pom Klementieff as Mantis. Pom Klementieff returns as the empathic Mantis, Quill's half-sister. Her performance emphasizes the character's innocence, emotional sensitivity, and growing agency within the team. Klementieff's casting for Volume 2 brought a fresh physicality and expressive range that translated seamlessly into Volume 3, where Mantis plays a key role in the group's interpersonal dynamics and the mission to save Rocket. Her ability to convey both comic awkwardness and genuine warmth has made Mantis a fan favorite connector among the Guardians. Vin Diesel as Groot, voice, and Austin Freeman as on-set Groot. Vin Diesel provides the voice of the adult Groot. Limited primarily to variations of I Am Groot, yet conveying a wide emotional spectrum through inflection and timing. Austin Freeman performed the on-set motion capture work, continuing the practical performance tradition established in earlier films. The character's evolution from sapling to adolescent to mature form across the trilogy reaches a new stage of capability and loyalty in Volume 3. Diesel's distinctive vocal presence has become inseparable from the character, while the motion capture performers ensure physical authenticity in interactions with the live action cast. Bradley Cooper as Rocket voice, Sean Gunn as young Rocket on-set motion capture, and Noah Raskin as baby Rocket. Bradley Cooper voices the adult Rocket, the genetically engineered raccoon, whose origin story forms the emotional center of Volume 3. Gunn has described the film as completing Rocket's arc begun in the first two Guardians movies and continued through Infinity War and Endgame. Sean Gunn performed the on-set motion capture for Rocket throughout the series and for the first time voiced the younger version of the character in flashbacks. Noah Raskin provided the voice of Baby Rocket. Cooper's vocal performance balances sarcasm, rage, vulnerability, and unexpected tenderness, while the dual Gunn contributions ensured continuity between physical performance and youthful vocal characterization. The layered casting approach allowed the film to depict Rocket's traumatic past with both technical precision and emotional authenticity. Chukwudi Iwuji as the High Evolutionary. Chukwudi Iwuji portrays the primary antagonist, a brilliant and ruthless geneticist obsessed with creating a perfect society through forced evolution. The role marks a major screen breakthrough for the Nigerian British actor, previously known for stage work with the Royal Shakespeare Company and a supporting turn as Clemson Munn in Gunn's Peacemaker. Gunn offered Iwuji the part during Peacemaker filming after being impressed by his talent and presence. Although larger name actors expressed interest and Gunn nearly offered the role to one without an audition, he advocated for Iwuji to Kevin Feige. Iwuji was the only actor who tested for the part. He approached the character by grounding the theatrical grandiosity, drawing on Shakespearean kings such as Richard III and Lear, while embracing the mad scientist flamboyance, costume set design, and classical music, including selections Iwuji suggested, informed his physicality and vocal delivery. Iwuji has described the character as both charismatic and detestable, requiring him to make the High Evolutionary's atrocity feel recognizably human in their self-justification. Will Poulter as Adam Warlock. Will Poulter plays the artificially created, golden-skinned powerhouse engineered by the Sovereign to destroy the Guardians. Poulter underwent a 3-month multi-stage audition process in 2021 that culminated in a full costume and makeup screen test. He did not see a full script until after being cast. Gunn sought a youthful actor capable of both dramatic weight and comedy, rejecting online suggestions of Tom Cruise in favor of someone who could portray Warlock as essentially a powerful infant discovering morality. Poulter has spoken about the character's ambiguity, navigating loyalty to his creators while developing an independent moral compass, and the physical demands of the gold makeup and action sequences. The casting positions Warlock for potential future MCU use beyond Volume 3. Maria Bakalova as Cosmo Maria Bakalova voices Cosmo the space dog, the telepathic Soviet space dog, who first appeared in the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special and becomes a full team member. Bakalova's MCU introduction expanded Cosmo from cameo to supporting player with distinct personality and telekinetic abilities that proved pivotal in the climax. Elizabeth Debicki as Ayesha. Elizabeth Debicki returns as Ayesha, the sovereign high priestess who creates Adam Warlock and pursues the Guardians. Her poised, imperious performance continues the character established in Volume 2, linking the Sovereign storyline to the High Evolutionary's larger ambitions. Sylvester Stallone as Takarogod. Sylvester Stallone reprises Takarogod, leader of the original Ravager team. His presence reinforces continuity with Volume 2 and the larger Ravager mythology, appearing alongside other returning members. Sean Gunn as Kraglin. In addition to his rocket contributions, Sean Gunn returns as Kraglin of Fonterry, Yondu's former second-in-command, who has become a full Guardian. The dual role underscores Gunn's deep involvement in the franchise's performance pipeline. Supporting and voice cast: Linda Cardellini voices Leela, the otter and Rocket's close companion in the flashbacks. Azim Chaudhary voices Teefs the walrus, and Michaela Hoover voices Floor the rabbit, batch 89 subjects whose fates drive Rocket's trauma. Judy Greer voices Warpig, Reynaldo Faberle voices Behemoth, and Tara Strong voices Mainframe, replacing the earlier association with Miley Cyrus. D. Bradley Baker provides the voice of Blurp, Adam's pet. Additional live-action supporting players include Nico Santos and Miriam Shaw as recorders Thiel and Wim, Nathan Fillion as Master Karja, Jennifer Holland as Administrator Qual, Michael Rosenbaum as Martinex, Jared Lillen-Gore as Krugar, and numerous character actors populating No Hair, Counter-Earth, and the High Evolutionaries facilities. Casting philosophy and process: James Gunn has emphasized a preference for auditioning actors rather than offering roles solely on name recognition, citing the risk of mismatched chemistry. He works closely with casting director Sarah Halley Finn, who has been central to the MCU's Guardians films. Gunn's process favors actors he has previously directed or those who demonstrate range through testing. The original Guardians casting involved extensive chemistry reads volume. 3 continued that approach for key new roles while relying on the established ensemble's proven rapport. Gunn selected the post-credits new Guardians lineup himself. The film's casting reflects both continuity, retaining the core team for a definitive chapter, and strategic expansion, introducing performers capable of carrying new characters forward. Practical considerations such as makeup endurance, Bautista, Gillan motion capture expertise, Sean Gunn, Austin Freeman, and vocal versatility, Cooper, Diesel, Bakalova shaped many decisions. The result is an ensemble that balances star power, character actor precision, and technical specialization, allowing the film to deliver both large-scale action and intimate emotional storytelling centered on Rocket's origin and the team's evolution. Production development and pre-production. The seeds of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 were planted years before cameras ever rolled. James Gunn, who wrote and directed the original Guardians of the Galaxy in 2014, has said that even while working on the first film, he was already sketching out a rough shape for a second entry, and that somewhere in the back of his mind, he had also begun turning over ideas for a possible third chapter. At that early stage, though, nothing was settled. In mid-2015, Gunn admitted he genuinely didn't know whether he'd stay attached to a third film, telling interviewers his involvement would hinge on how he felt once Volume 2 was finished. Marvel, for its part, was thinking further ahead. Studio boss Kevin Feige confirmed in the spring of 2016 that a third Guardians movie was already part of the studio's long-range plans for 2020 and beyond. By the time Volume 2 was approaching release in early 2017, Gunn's tone had shifted from uncertain to committed, if still vague on specifics. He acknowledged a third film was coming for sure, while cautioning that the details hadn't been worked out and that whether he'd direct it was still an open question he intended to resolve within a matter of weeks. Part of his hesitation traced back to a personal attachment. Gunn didn't relish the idea of returning to the franchise without Michael Rooker, since Rooker's character Yondu Udonta had been killed off at the close of Volume 2, and Gunn wasn't sure he wanted to make the film without him. That hesitation dissolved quickly In April 2017, timed just ahead of Volume 2's theatrical debut, Gunn announced he would return to write and direct the third installment. He described the story as being set after the events of Avengers, Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, and framed it as the film that would close out this particular version of the Guardians while also setting up characters, both old and new, for the next decade of Marvel storytelling. Gunn also spoke about seeing all three Guardians films as one continuous story rather than three standalone chapters, with the third movie tying together loose threads from the first two and answering many of the questions they'd raised. He additionally expressed interest in shaping the broader cosmic side of the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward, explaining why he chose to come back at all. Gunn said his affection for the characters ran deeper than people might assume, and that he felt they still had more to discover about themselves and about the strange universe they inhabited. Adam Warlock's introduction had actually been considered for Volume 2 first. Gunn had written the character into an early treatment for that film, but he and Feige ultimately agreed the character mattered too much to the cosmic corner of the MCU to rush, and instead teased his eventual arrival for later, shortly after Volume 2's release. Gunn said he expected to spend roughly the next 3 years developing the third film, and he confirmed that Pom Klementieff would return as Mantis. He also planned on bringing back Elizabeth Debicki as Ayesha. By the middle of June 2017, Gunn had a completed first draft of his treatment, and around that time he was weighing whether to revise a small detail buried in the first film's mugshot sequence involving the Nova Corps. That September, he reiterated the film was still roughly 3 years away, and the project had, at least informally, been targeted for a May 2020 release. Early the following year, Gunn discussed a possible cameo with Mark Hamill, and by April 2018, Chris Pratt was confirmed to be returning as Peter Quill, with Dave Bautista confirming his own return as Drax the following month. Marvel received a finished first draft of the screenplay from Gunn by the end of June 2018. Just as official pre-production was getting underway, then everything stopped. On July 20, 2018, Disney and Marvel cut ties with Gunn entirely. The break came after old offensive tweets Gunn had posted years earlier, jokes touching on subjects like rape and pedophilia, resurfaced online, pushed into wider circulation by conservative commentators, including Mike Cernovich, who called for Gunn to be fired. Disney Studios chairman Alan Horn issued a statement calling the tweets indefensible and inconsistent with the studio's values, confirming the business relationship had been severed. While he wasn't part of the actual decision, Disney CEO Bob Iger backed the move as a unanimous call among the relevant executives. Gunn responded publicly with a series of tweets acknowledging that early in his career he'd built a persona around being outrageous and taboo, but said he'd changed as a person and by extension as an artist, trying now to root his work in love and connection rather than shock value. In a separate statement, he called the old tweets failed, unfortunate attempts at provocation, said he understood and accepted the studio's decision and took full responsibility for how he'd behaved at the time. The fallout was immediate and loud. Several Guardians cast members posted messages of support for Gunn on social media. Michael Rooker responded by quitting Twitter altogether. A petition calling for Gunn's reinstatement gathered more than 300,000 signatures. Other entertainment figures weighed in too, including actress Selma Blair and comedian Bobcat Goldthwait, while commentators such as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and outlets like The Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Deadline Hollywood, and Forbes published pieces examining what the firing meant for the industry. On July 30, the film's principal cast, Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Bautista, Bradley Cooper, Vin Diesel, Sean Gunn, Clement F. Rooker, and Karen Gillan, released a joint statement backing Gunn, noting they had deliberately waited 10 days before responding so they could reflect, and expressing both encouragement at the public support for his reinstatement and frustration with those who'd bought into conspiracy theories about him. Even with that groundswell of support, Variety reported Disney had no plans to bring Gunn back, on the reasoning that the old jokes were unacceptable in a post-Me Too cultural climate and clashed with the company's family-friendly brand. Names like Jon Favreau, Taika Waititi, and the Russo brothers circulated as possible replacements, though Variety noted the studio hadn't actually met with anyone else yet and was likely to bring in someone new. In early August, Bautista said he'd honor his contract and appear in the film, but only if Marvel used the script Gunn had already written. Behind the scenes, Disney and Marvel wanted the production to keep moving, and it emerged that the studio intended to shoot from Gunn's existing screenplay regardless of who directed it. Because the offending tweets predated his Marvel contract, Gunn hadn't technically breached any agreement, which complicated the negotiations around his exit package. Reports pegged his settlement at somewhere between $7 and $10 million, with some indication that the talks left room for him to eventually return in some capacity, even if only to develop or direct a different Marvel project. Once his exit was finalized, Gunn was free to pursue other work, and rival studios came calling, including Warner Brothers, which wanted him for its DC slate. Quietly, Marvel executives had begun their own back-channel conversations with Disney Corporate, hoping to find some way to bring Gunn back, an effort partly inspired by the cast's public statement. In mid-August, Gunn met with Alan Horn after Gunn's talent agency pushed hard for him to get a second chance. The meeting was reportedly civil and professional, but Horn treated it as little more than a courtesy call and reaffirmed the firing. Later that August, the skeleton crew that had begun pre-production work was let go, effectively postponing the film indefinitely while the studio searched for a new director. Pre-production had been expected to resume by the end of 2018, with actual filming penciled in for January or February 2019. Around this time, Bautista said he wasn't sure. He even wanted to keep working for Disney, given how the company had handled the situation. Late in September, Sean Gunn, James's brother, who plays Kraglin and had also done motion capture work for Rocket, said Disney, still intended to make the film using James's script, though the timeline for resuming production remained unclear. He added that he'd personally been preparing to reprise his roles before his brother was let go. Around the same time, Bradley Cooper was asked whether he'd consider directing the third film himself on the strength of his own directorial debut with A Star Is Born. But he said he couldn't picture directing something he hadn't written. By mid-October, Gunn had finalized his exit agreement with Disney and turned his attention to writing and potentially directing The Suicide Squad for Warner Brothers and DC Films. The reversal came almost immediately after that. The day after Gunn officially signed on to The Suicide Squad in mid-October 2018, Horn privately informed him he could return to direct Volume 3. After all, a change of heart driven by further conversations between the studios and by how impressed Horn had become with the way Gunn had conducted himself throughout the ordeal. Gunn discussed his commitments to the Suicide Squad with Feige and the two sides agreed that work on Volume 3 would be paused until February 2021 so Gunn could finish that film first. Around this time, Adam McKay, who had previously worked with Marvel on the Ant-Man script, mentioned he'd discussed the possibility of taking over as Volume 3's director with Feige, among other potential projects, signaling that the studio had at least kept its options open. By early 2019, both Feige and Pratt were publicly reaffirming that the third Guardians film would still happen, and in March 2019, it was officially announced that Gunn had been rehired to direct. Deadline Hollywood reported at the time that Marvel had never seriously entertained hiring anyone else. By the end of April, all five of the franchise's principal stars, Pratt Saldana, Bautista, Cooper, and Diesel, were confirmed to be returning, with filming tentatively set for 2020. Reflecting on the whole saga in May 2019, Gunn said that of everything he'd been sad to lose when he was fired, what stung most was walking away from Rocket. He has described feeling a deep personal kinship with the character, at one point saying he and Rocket were essentially the same. His attachment to Rocket grew while making the first film, rooted in the idea that a scrappy, wisecracking creature in the Bugs Bunny mold could exist believably within the MCU only if his backstory were the saddest one in the whole universe, a notion Gunn has called the emotional seed of the entire trilogy. While the finished film ultimately reveals Rocket's origins through flashbacks reminiscent of the structure used in The Godfather Part 2, Gunn initially toyed with telling that story in a smaller spin-off centered just on Rocket and Groot without the rest of the team. He was eventually talked into folding it into a full Guardians film instead, while still making Rocket's story its emotional backbone. That same month, Gillen confirmed her own return and said she was thrilled to have Gunn back at the helm. In June, Saldana, whose character Gamora had been killed off in Infinity War before a younger, time-displaced version reappeared in Endgame, said Gamora's future in Volume 3 would depend on what Marvel and Gunn ultimately decided, though she personally hoped to see the character rejoin the Guardians as the galaxy's most lethal woman, a description she'd been given in earlier films. When Gunn was asked that October whether he'd resented Marvel's choice to kill Gamora off in Infinity War, he said he hadn't, noting he'd been consulted about that storyline in advance. According to Infinity War and Endgame screenwriters Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, Gamora was specifically brought back to life in Endgame so that Gunn would have her available to use in Volume 3. Gunn was firm on one point throughout. Yondu would not be coming back from the dead. Asked about it in December 2019, he said that so long as he remained involved with the Guardians characters, he wouldn't resurrect Yondu, arguing that the emotional stakes of a character's death mattered too much to undo. He repeated the sentiment in February 2020, saying bringing Yondu back would cheapen the sacrifice he made in Volume 2 and that the character could only conceivably return in a flashback or prequel setting. He reiterated the same position again in March 2021. That April Gunn said the COVID-19 pandemic wasn't expected to disrupt the production timeline, and by May he was projecting a release sometime a little after 2021. In August 2020, he turned in a new script draft while simultaneously beginning work on the Suicide Squad spin-off series Peacemaker. By September, he was looking at 2021 as the year he'd finally start actively working on Volume 3 once those other commitments wrapped. He confirmed in November that the Volume 3 script was finished and said, surprisingly, Little had changed from his original vision despite the years of delay. A 2023 release date was locked in the following month, with filming expected to begin in late 2021. Shortly after it was revealed, the film would also be set after the events of the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, a related television special Gunn was developing concurrently. Design and visual pre-production work formally kicked off in April 2021. In early May, Marvel announced the official release date of May 5, 2023. Later that month, Gunn confirmed Volume 3 would take place after Thor Love and Thunder, which had folded several Guardians characters into its own story. That film wrapped up a thread from Endgame that saw Thor head off into space alongside the Guardians. An ending Gunn has said was decided during the editing process for Endgame and Infinity War, and one that ended up conflicting with the Volume 3 screenplay he'd already turned in, since he'd never intended to include Thor in his film at all. By his own admission, he didn't feel he understood the character well enough to write him convincingly. Storyboarding began around June 2021, and filming was confirmed to start that November in Atlanta, Georgia, with an expected wrap around April 2022. Around this time, Bautista admitted he still hadn't read a full script and wasn't sure how much it had changed during the years of delay. The following month, Gillan said she and Clemenchev had read the script together and found it brilliant, emotional, and funny, calling it Gunn's strongest work yet with these characters. Gunn himself said the script had stayed largely the same as his original draft from years earlier, though he'd been tweaking it in small ways along the way. He was in the middle of another pass by the end of July and described the film as more emotionally heavy than its predecessors, with a grounded tone influenced by his work on the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker. At one point, Gunn had considered making the Fantastic Four villain Annihilus the architect behind Rocket's creation and the film's central antagonist, before ultimately settling on the High Evolutionary instead. He'd also written a cameo for his friend Kumail Nanjiani, but scrapped it once Nanjiani was cast as Kingo in Marvel's Eternals. By late August 2021, Gunn and the studio were meeting actors for the role of Adam Warlock, including Will Poulter, who auditioned over Zoom before flying to Atlanta for an in-person screen test with Gunn. Poulter knew going in that the character had been teased at the end of Volume 2, but wasn't told Warlock's name until later, and information about the character's deep comic book history with the High Evolutionary was fed to him gradually. George Mackay had also made the shortlist, and Regé-Jean Page was considered, while David Corenswet auditioned and Aaron Pierre came close to landing the role. Both of the latter two would later be cast by Gunn in DC Studios projects instead, as Superman and Jon Stewart Green Lantern respectively. Gunn has said fitting the character into the story proved genuinely difficult, despite having set up his eventual arrival at the close of Volume 2, describing the process as forcing a square peg into a round hole. In September, Gillan again praised the script, saying it would dig deeper into the returning characters, while Seth Green, who voices Howard the Duck, said the film centered on Gamora and Nebula's story, though he didn't yet know if Howard would make another appearance. Poulter's casting as Adam Warlock was announced in October, by which point Gunn said dozens of roles had already been filled. He explained that Poulter's mix of comedic and dramatic range made him the right fit, along with a desired youthfulness that would suit the studio's longer-term plans for the character. Casting continued for numerous background and alien roles as filming approached. Pratt began rehearsals and camera tests that same month, and a production meeting took place in early November, just before shooting began, where Gunn again rolled out, bringing Yondu back. Filming principal photography began on November 8, 2021 at Trilogy Studios in Atlanta, Georgia, under the working title Hot Christmas. Henry Braham returned as cinematographer, having previously shot Volume 2, The Suicide Squad, and the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. The shoot had already been pushed back twice, once from its original January or February 2019 target because of guns firing, and again from a planned February 2021 start so Gunn could finish Peacemaker first. As filming got underway, Sylvester Stallone confirmed he'd be reprising his Volume 2 role as Stakar Ogorod, and Gunn shared a photo of the principal cast that revealed Chukwudi Iwuji had joined the production, a casting choice that grew out of his collaboration with Gunn on Peacemaker. In fact, Iwuji's screen test for Volume 3 was shot right on the Peacemaker set using that show's crew, and Marvel returned the favor by letting Gunn use the volume. 3 productions owned sets and crew to film Ezra Miller's cameo as Barry Allen for the Peacemaker season finale. Production designer Beth Mickle has said Gunn leaned heavily on practical effects for the film, a preference carried over from their earlier work together on The Suicide Squad. Gunn initially planned to use Industrial Light and Magic Stagecraft virtual production system, the same LED volume technology developed for the Disney Plus series The Mandalorian, but by October 2021, he'd concluded the approach wouldn't work because the film sets were simply too large, larger even than the ones used on the Suicide Squad. One notable physical build was the interior of the Guardian's new ship, the Bowie constructed as a 4-story set. Judiana Markovsky served as costume designer. Filming for the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special actually overlapped with Volume 3's production, running from February through late April 2022 using the same principal cast and many of the same sets. Gunn has said he enjoyed the tonal whiplash of hopping from Volume 3's heavier scenes over to the far lighter holiday special, calling it a welcome relief both for himself and for the cast. And he's described the holiday special shoot as considerably easier than making Volume 3. In February 2022, it was revealed that Collie Brand had joined the film's cast, portraying an alien character. Some shooting was also expected to take place in London toward the end of 2021. Vol 3 holds a small but notable distinction. It's the first MCU film to include the word fuck spoken uncensored, delivered by Quill. The line, "Open the fucking door," wasn't actually scripted. Pratt improvised it on Gunn's suggestion during filming, though there had reportedly been some discussion about giving the moment to Groot instead. For the film's action sequences, Gunn has cited the South Korean film The Villainess as a key influence. Principal photography wrapped on May 6, 2022. Additional casting news continued to trickle out even after filming concluded. In early June 2022, Daniela Melchior, fresh off her role in The Suicide Squad, was confirmed for a small part in the film, alongside confirmation that Debicki would indeed return as Aisha, and that Maria Bakalova and Nico Santos had joined the cast as well. The following month, Iwuji and Bakalova were confirmed to be playing the High Evolutionary and Cosmo the Space Dog, respectively. Cosmo, physically portrayed on set by the dog actor Fred in the first 2 films, was played this time, as in the holiday special, by a different dog actor named Slate. The month after that, Michael Rosenbaum confirmed he had reprised his Volume 2 role as Martin X. In October 2022, It was revealed Bakalova would appear as Cosmo in the holiday special ahead of her Volume 3 appearance. Early the following year, Azim Chaudhary confirmed he had a role in the film, voicing the walrus character Teefs, and in April 2023, Linda Cardellini and Tara Strong were revealed to have voiced Lila and Mainframe respectively. Cardellini having previously played Laura Barton across several MCU projects and having a long history with Gunn dating back to the Scooby-Doo films he wrote and his own film Super, while Strong stepped in for Miley Cyrus, who had voiced Mainframe in Volume 2 but was unavailable this time around. 2 additional days of reshoots took place after principal photography wrapped. Post-production visual effects work was distributed across a large roster of companies, including Framestore Weta FX, Sony Pictures Imageworks, Industrial Light and Magic, Rodeo FX, Rise FX, Crafty Apes, BUF, Lola VFX, Perception, and CompuHire. Stefan Serretti, who had served as visual effects supervisor on the very first Guardians film, returned to the role for Volume 3. On the editing side, Fred Raskin, editor of both previous Guardians films, returned once again, working alongside Greg Doria, who had cut the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. Tatiana S. Riegel provided additional editing support, music as early as April 2017. Gunn was already thinking about how different the film's music would need to feel compared to the first 2 soundtrack albums. Awesome Mix Volume 1 and Volume 2. By the following month, he admitted he was panicking a bit over the soundtrack, aware he'd soon need to lock in some fairly specific choices given how much more music was potentially available to him for this particular story. By early July 2017, he had whittled his options down to a short list of 181 possible songs, though he noted the list could easily grow again before he was done. All the songs were finalized the following month. In keeping with series tradition, the soundtrack is diegetic, sourced from the Zune media player Quill received at the end of volume 2, though Gunn made clear the selections weren't confined to 1970s pop, as the earlier 2 films largely had been, instead spanning multiple decades of music. One licensing snag did occur. Gunn was unable to secure the rights to use Russian roulette by the Lords of the New Church due to an ongoing legal dispute over ownership of the song. The film opens with an acoustic rendition of Radiohead's Creep, a choice Gunn felt struck a very different emotional register from how the previous 2 films began. It closes with Florence and the Machine's Dog Days Are Over. Gunn is a longtime fan of the band's album Longs and has said he'd been considering using that song to close out the trilogy since he was writing Volume 2, the track list for Awesome Mix Volume 3 was revealed in April 2023 and made available on Spotify and Apple Music on April 3. Folded into a larger Guardians of the Galaxy, the official mixtape playlist that also included the soundtracks and scores of the first 2 films, the Awesome Mix Volume 3 album itself was released by Hollywood Records on CD and digital download on May 3, 2023, followed by a 12-inch double LP vinyl release on May 5 and a cassette release on July 7. On the score side, Gunn revealed in October 2021 that composer John Murphy was writing the film's music and that some of it had already been recorded in time to be played on set during filming to help set the mood for cast and crew. Murphy took over scoring duties from Tyler Bates, who had composed the previous 2 films, though some of Bates's musical themes were referenced within Murphy's new score. Murphy had also stepped in for Bates on the Suicide Squad. After Bates departed that production partway through, Murphy's original score for Volume 3 was released digitally on May 3, 2023, the same day as the Awesome Mix Volume 3 song compilation. Marketing for the film also leaned on its music. The project was previewed at Marvel's 2022 San Diego Comic-Con panel, where early footage screened for the crowd, and Iwuji's casting as the High Evolutionary was announced, with the actor appearing in costume. Gunn later explained the footage wasn't released publicly because the visual effects weren't polished enough yet to hold up to repeated viewing and close scrutiny. An official trailer arrived on December 1, 2022 at Brazil's CCXP convention set to the Spacehawk song. In the meantime, Drew Taylor of The Wrap described the trailer as thrilling and emotional, noting that Gunn's familiar freewheeling tone was intact even as an undercurrent of real melancholy ran beneath it. Variety's Carson Burton predicted from the footage that the film was shaping up to be an emotional send-off, pointing to glimpses of Rocket's memories and Star-Lord's grief over losing Gamora, while The Verge's Jay Peters said the trailer had hooked him with its promise of a wild, multi-planet journey across the stars. A second trailer debuted during Super Bowl LVIII on February 12, 2023, set to Rainbow's Since You've Been Gone. Screen Rant's Grant Hermans felt it offered a deeper look at the film, particularly at Adam Warlock's powers, compared to his brief tease in Volume 2, and noted that where the first trailer had efficiently set the film's tone with melancholic imagery, the second one pushed further into the emotional core of the story. The trailer racked up more than 134 million views across TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, reportedly becoming the most watched Super Bowl trailer in post-game day traffic, according to the tracking firm Relish Mix, and marking the first time since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic that a Super Bowl movie trailer had cleared 100 million social views within 24 hours. Disney and Marvel Music partnered with Spotify in May 2023 to promote the release further, building a dedicated playlist called the KGOTG Radio Experience. Marvel also teamed up with General Mills on limited edition cereal and snack tie-ins, including Guardians branded versions of Honey Nut Cheerios, Cookie Crisps, Lucky Charms, Trix, Reese's Puffs, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and Go-Gurt. In a more unusual promotional stunt, Microsoft partnered with Marvel to create a single non-functional 3D printed replica of the Zune Media player featured in the film, which was then launched aboard the International Space Station. Rolesse Theatrical Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 held an early public screening at the Dongdaemun Design Plaza in Seoul on April 19, 2023. The film's world premiere followed shortly after at Disneyland Paris on April 22, 2023. And its North American premiere was held at the Dolby Theatre in Hollywood on April 27. It opened theatrically in a number of countries, including the United Kingdom on May 3, 2023, ahead of its US release on May 5. The film had originally been targeted for a May 1, 2020. Release before that date was scrapped amid Gunn's firing and the ensuing production delays. It ultimately arrived as part of Phase 5 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The film played in a wide array of formats, including standard 3D, IMAX, Dolby Cinema, 4DX, and ScreenX. Disney distributed more than 600 distinct versions of the film to theaters worldwide. Among them, a specialty version using variable aspect ratios, roughly 45 minutes of the runtime, presented in the flatter 1.851 ratio, with the remainder shown in the wider letterbox 2.391 ratio, typical of the earlier films. Home Media Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment released Volume 3, digitally on July 7, 2023, followed by physical releases on Ultra HD Blu-ray, Standard Blu-ray and DVD on August 1. The film arrived on Disney Plus on August 2, where an IMAX enhanced version was also made available for streaming. The Ultra HD and Blu-ray editions preserved the variable 1.85:2.39, one aspect ratio presentation used in select non-IMAX theatrical screenings, notably Volume 3 turned out to be the final title. Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment released on physical media in Australia, as the company subsequently chose to stop selling its films there in physical disc formats altogether. Reception box office worldwide. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 grossed roughly $845. 6 million, made up of about 359 million from the United States and Canada, and roughly 486.6 million from international markets, making it the fourth highest grossing film released in 2023. Deadline Hollywood, factoring in the film's full slate of costs and revenues, estimated its net profit at around $124 million. Domestically, pre-release tracking had projected an opening weekend in the neighborhood of $110 million from about 4,450 theaters. The film ultimately outperformed that estimate, pulling in $48. $2 million on its first day alone, including $17.5 million from Thursday preview screenings, before finishing its opening weekend with $118.4 million, enough to top the box office. It held on to the number one spot in its second weekend, grossing another $62 million domestically, a decline of 48% from its debut. That drop represented the strongest second weekend hold of any sequel in MCU history to that point, comparing favorably against the far steeper declines seen for recent franchise entries like Ant-Man and Quantumania, down 70, Thor, Love and Thunder, down 68, and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, down 67. In its third domestic weekend, the film earned $32 million before being knocked out of the top spot by Fast X. Internationally, Volume 3 opened to $168.1 million. Its second international weekend brought in another $92 million, a 40% drop from its debut frame. As of late May 2023, its top performing overseas markets were China $77.4 million, the United Kingdom $36 million, Mexico $30.8 million, South Korea $26.7 million, and France $24.3 million. Critical response on Rotten Tomatoes Volume 3 holds an 82% approval rating based on 4 out of 4 reviews, with an average score of 7.2 out of 10. The site's consensus describes the film as an emotionally overwhelming send-off, calling it a loving farewell to the MCU's most ragtag family, even as it occasionally squeezes a bit too tightly on the audience's heartstrings. On Metacritic, the film carries a weighted average score of 64 out of 100 based on 63 critics, which the site classifies as generally favorable. Audiences surveyed by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of A on the service's A+ to F scale, matching the scores earned by the first two Guardians films, while the exit poll service Posttrack reported a 91% positive score, with 79% of surveyed moviegoers saying they definitely recommend the film to others. Many reviews were enthusiastic. The Independent called it the best Marvel movie in years, a sentiment echoed by both Vox and the CBC. Other critics were more mixed. Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian and the BBC's Nicholas Barber both felt the film ran too long, though Barber argued that its saving grace was that Gunn had been given as much freedom to lean into raw emotion as he'd been given to indulge his more chaotic creative impulses. Wendy Ide of The Observer praised the film's emotional heft. describing it as a satisfying conclusion that manages to retain the irreverent swagger central to the franchise's identity while still landing a series of genuinely devastating emotional gut punches. Matt Singer of Screen Crush singled out the way the film wraps up Rocket's arc, observing that it plays almost like Marvel spent $200 million making a movie about a melancholic space raccoon in search of love and acceptance. Writing for The Verge, Charles Pulliam Moore praised the film's action sequences and overall storytelling, noting how the flashback heavy structure built around Rocket's near death experience gives the rest of the Guardians a reason to finally confront emotional baggage that's been trailing them since Endgame. The Hindustan Times praised Gunn's direction and writing, describing the experience of watching him wrap up a story he clearly cares deeply about as something that inevitably prompts reflection on one's own journey with the characters. CBS News' Nathan Durr singled out the soundtrack for praise, noting how effectively the needle drops reinforce the emotional complexity of the characters throughout the film. Not every review was kind. A negative take from NPR took issue with the film's heavy use of animal cruelty and animal testing imagery as a storytelling device, while the New York Times described it as a dour, visually unpleasant 2.5 hour ordeal that might appeal only to die-hard completionists. The Chicago Tribune went further, calling it the emptiest and most brutal MCU film to date. In something of a counterpoint, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals Peter took the opposite view entirely, naming it the best animal rights film of the year and presenting Gunn with a Not a Number award in recognition of how the film depicts the cruelty of animal experimentation.